Welcome to another neXup podcast. I am your host, PC747, and today have a couple of topics I want to talk about. Now, my podcast is mainly centered around tech, as that's the driving theme for my channel, for my website, and pretty much just a lot of things I do. But every now and then, I do like to talk about entertainment, and today I'm gonna throw in a little bit of that, as well as some other things that may not be really smartphone related, but I think it really has a lot to do as far as where are we going with technology and just the overall gist. So, yes, let's go ahead and prepare to get started and dive right in. Now, for many of you who may be listening to this, you may catch it probably after time move forward, as I recorded this pretty much the last day of before we go to daylight savings. So, if you happen to catch it when I upload it, then, as they tell people, don't forget to set your clocks back, which, I don't understand why they still put that out there, for the simple fact that now where we are with technology, a lot of your clocks, your smartphones, your tablets, everything just automatically set itself for you. Maybe I guess if you still have an old school clock, or I guess a microwave clock still don't set itself for you, so you may have to go back there. I know my car, the clock in it actually doesn't set for me. So, and to be honest with you, I actually just leave it as it is, so I'll actually set it back when it's, time to fall back. I just leave it as it is, just keep my reminder to myself that, okay, it's an hour behind. Not because I'm just being lazy. It's just, I know that for the most part, that daylight savings time is the majority of the year. So, I'm not going to set my clock back for a couple months when I know it's going to roll forward anyway and be right back on time. But that's just me being who I am. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and get started about a couple of topics I got. And one of the things that, the hype for this weekend being movie season. And for me, this is the time of year I actually do enjoy. And this is something that actually is not really tech related. This is part of entertainment that I was talking about earlier. But yeah, I enjoy going out there watching a lot of these movies, especially these comic book movies. I've been a big fan of them, as of late, especially Marvel. They've been doing a pretty good job. And even though I'm more of a DC fan as far as heroes, Marvel been doing a better job with their movies than DC. I did like Batman v Superman and Justice League, but I know they had their problems, and a lot of criticism that the movie got, it well deserved. There were just a lot of issues with it, and you could clearly tell the difference between what Marvel do with their movies and what DC have been doing in their movies. It seems like, obviously that DC been playing the game of trying to play catch up, and they've been rushing their movies and trying to build this cinematic universe. And they're not the only one. There are a lot of movie studios that have been going that route, and as a result, they've been putting out a poor product instead of giving it time to mature and develop. It's like this, let's hurry and get to where Marvel has been. And Marvel, they already had their card. They already played the game. They've been, giving each hero time to develop over 10 years. Now, let's be honest, Marvel haven't always put out good, great movies. There have been some movies that, for me personally, I just didn't like it as much as the other movies, but overall, if you look at the whole 10-year span of their movies, people will give it a passing grade. They did a great job so far. So, and it's about to come to an end. Now, this weekend, if you haven't been paying attention, which I know a lot of you guys have, you got Captain Marvel out there. I put up my review of the movie on my website at neXup.net. And if you go on there, you get the chance to check it out. But basically, when I do a review for a movie, I try to be as spoiler-free as possible. That's kind of why I title the article or title my reviews "Hate Spoiler Reviews," because I don't like spoilers. I actually avoid pretty much all movie reviews until after I watch the movie. Not because of the simple fact I'm worried about someone spoiling it so much, but I like to be able to go in kind of cold and kind of get my own feeling of how I may feel about the movie, and not really have something spoiled or taken away from that. So I actually like to go to a movie cold and just have my own thoughts on it, and then come back and share it. So knowing that's how I feel, I try to do the best I can when I review a movie to kind of do the same thing, just give you the basics and get to the point. And as far as this movie is concerned, Captain Marvel, this obvious sentiment that, the approach that Marvel took here was more of making this movie for the times. We're looking at this year, in the past 2 years, to be fair, has been this movement of Me Too, this women empowerment movement. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's clear that Marvel chose this is the right time to put this movie out there. We can take advantage of this time, and we put a strong female superhero movie right there to capture right here and at this time the atmosphere and attitudes of the people. And this is pretty much what I feel like this movie is about, showing that there is a hero out there, the strongest hero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and she is a woman, and it is showing her being independent in this movie, and it does a lot of that. I wouldn't quite say it's to the point of really bashing it over your head, but it's clearly there. It's clear that they're making this the point, and you can get a feel of that when you look at several characters in the movie and kind of their roles and the avenues they take. It's clear that this is what they're trying to portray in this movie, and you get that. Now, as far as the movie overall, personally, look, I wish they would have spent a little bit more time developing the characters, especially giving us more of the backstory between the Kree and the Skrulls, and kind of dove into that world just a little bit longer. We know Earth. All of the heroes, or majority of the heroes from the Marvel Cinematic Universe are from Earth. We explored many avenues of this planet. And one of the things I've enjoyed about Guardians of the Galaxy is the fact that it pulled away from this planet. It kind of allowed us to see something beyond that and dive into a world beyond our own. And looking at where Captain Marvel was kind of sitting around, and her being a Kree, this would be a great opportunity to really explore more of that world, get more of that feeling of the beyond Earth. And I wish they would spend a little bit more time on that. Overall, as far as the movie, if I had to give it a grade here, I would say that it's mediocre. It's not going to not excite you so much. You're not going to go in there and walk out saying this is an awesome movie. It's not going to have the same kind of feel that a Black Panther did last year, where Black Panther really rallied the core audience of not just Marvel, but what it did for the African American community. You had a superhero that represented that culture, I felt, in an awesome way. And there were a lot of people who went to go see that movie that could care less about Marvel, can care less about any of the cinematic universe, but there were lines around the building just to see Black Panther. It was a movement. And I don't think you're going to get that with Captain Marvel. And especially when I look at a lot of reviews, because before I even went to the movies, I try to avoid reviews, but, in this day and age, you can't avoid all of them, especially if you have your Google Now page, or they're calling it their Google page now. As soon as you open it, you're going to get spoiled. They're going to tell you pretty much everything. Not everything, but you'll get a chance to read. Someone write an article or something pop up that's saying someone disliked this movie, or this is the thoughts of certain movies. And some of the early things I read where people just had some negative reviews on the movie and didn't like it so much. And I guess I can understand that, coming off of where we came with the Avengers, but as far as overall, I think, again, it hovers in the middle. It fits well, and I think it really did its job. And the main purpose, I feel, of this movie was to get you ready for Endgame, and that's what it did. This movie pretty much got you ready for Endgame, and that's all that was really meant to do. So, again, if you have any, want to see my full reaction or thoughts on that movie, go ahead and check it out on my website. Now, as far as the comparison between this and Wonder Woman, which is probably the stronger movie, I have to say Wonder Woman. I think Wonder Woman did a better job of, and it's odd considering when you look at but again, said earlier how you look at both of these movie universes. I mean, it's clear Marvel had a game plan. It had a stronger overall base where DC just didn't. And yet, when it comes to these two movies, it was like Wonder Woman was a better movie. And it was because it wasn't so much trying to, I guess, beat your head or beat over your head that this is a woman empowerment movie. Instead, it just was a good movie, and it centered around, where she was at. Now, okay, I know Themyscira, where she was at, is pretty much an all Amazonian island, which is all women. So you're going to have some of that. But I guess my point is, it wasn't really so much as blatant trying to beat over your head as I felt that Captain Marvel was. In fact, it was just a better movie overall. And yes, kudos to DC. Even though they couldn't get Justice League on par with the Avengers are at right now, or even Batman v Superman, which I felt should have been, a better movie than was put out there, and could have been the movie of the, of the year or the century. But you could argue all the issues that were brought up that movie, and I think the main issue was the fact that it rushed to become a Justice League movie versus being a true conflict between two of the greatest heroes in the in the not just DC universe, but I would argue two of the top heroes, period. Batman and Superman, the hero that really signify a lot of pop culture today. Because it's clear when before Marvel came onto the scene with Iron Man and started putting out these Avengers movies, majority of people no one knew. When people walked into Guardians of the Galaxy, no one knew who they were. A lot of people don't know who Captain Marvel is, or who the Kree, who the Skrull is. I know I didn't, until after seeing some of these movies and really digging in and doing some research. I didn't really care about who they were. I know who Batman is. Superman, I know their role gallery. So, they had the better character that was. They have more to work with as far as their characters, have more material to pull from. And the fact that, the movie wasn't as good as it could have been was disappointing. But yet, somehow, Wonder Woman, out of all that, seemed to be the stronger of the DC movies. So, yeah, I mean, kudos to that. For those going out there to check it out, I think you will have a good time. And by the way, just real quick, there will be 2 post-credit scenes. The first one, definitely got to check it out. The second one, I'm not going to lie, that's something you can check out on YouTube. For me, I felt like it was a waste of time and almost was just a complete letdown. But that was my personal opinion. But let's go ahead and move on to my first topic as far as tech, if you want to call that about tech. And that's SpaceX. So over the weekend, if you guys weren't paying attention, to all the news and all the excitement that was happening, SpaceX, who is known for producing rockets, as well as their owner, Elon Musk, and he's been in the news for all the wrong reasons before this point. Just some of the ways that Tesla kind of have not been performing as of late, whether it been stocks, some of the things that came from him, him appearing on different shows and stuff like that. So he haven't really been getting a lot of, praise as of late. But, his company, SpaceX, which is designed to be a company to revolutionize space travel and to bring it to the commercial world. In other words, instead of a space company where the government is funding it, it's going to be funded by a corporation who is going to make money pretty much, taking troops or taking, I said troops, but taking astronauts into space, as well as crew loads and stuff like that. So one of the, a big revolutionary thing that happened over the weekend, on March the 3rd, we had Dragon, their space show, take off and docked with the International Space Station. Now, why is that important? Well, because we was able to take a commercialized vehicle that was not made by a country or a government and create it to where it was able to dock with the space station. They was able to go in there and do all their testing to make sure it was safe. And then it was able to leave and splash down to Earth safely. And it ended up splashing down on March 8th at 5:45. So this really opens up the game to what we can really do with this. And the next goal for SpaceX is to try to get live crew, and then eventually get to the point where they can, move crew and payload from Earth to the space station. And that's pretty much the gist of it. And this is going to open up science and technology in ways that we can start to, or that we can't even imagine if you think about it. Here we are able to move people in cargo. And this is going to eventually open up. And I think it'll be 10, 15 years before we see this. But when we start having people go to space, imagine, things we've been dreaming about. Being able to leave Earth and see what space is like. Something that was only reserved for the few. Those who were able to become astronauts. Now this is going to be something that you as a everyday person, as a normal individual, are going to be able to do. You're going to be able to go online one day and say, I want to buy a ticket to fly to the International Space Station or to the moon. Or beyond that. Because once we get to the point where we evolve this technology to where we can make it safer, how long before we have hotels in space? Till we make space a travel destination. And what will that do for us as a society overall? To be able to go beyond our own planet and to be able to see the stars closer, to see the Earth in a different light, to join all the other astronauts, to see something they saw. In other words, the average Joe can be an astronaut for a fee, especially if we're able to get that fee down to a price that the average person can afford. What if for $1,000, you can go online, get a ticket to fly to and from Earth to whatever space station and back? Think about how this will open up commercially. Think about the companies that will be involved in creating this space island of hotels and areas where people can go and just be able to capture that moment. It opens up a lot of opportunity here. And it changes where we can go. It can encourage more generations of people to want to dig deeper into science and study that more, because we're going to need the jobs of people to be able to supply that. We're going to need more engineers, more people to build these space stations, to build the rockets to get them to and from, to maintain them, to maintain safe space travel. It's space travel that is open to any and everyone. That's an opportunity there. I mean, can you see it here? You go and whatever company, whether it be, we can take some of these airlines out here now. Where you go to United Airlines website, Southwest, American, Delta, pick an airline. And you have the opportunity to click and, buy a ticket to space. That's a dream right there. So I'm excited about where we are with this whole space travel. And I know I'm looking way beyond what probably we're going to be able to see within, obviously, the next couple of years. But that's what I actually am intrigued about this because the reality is when you open it up to commercial, that means they're gonna see the opportunity of ways to expand this and obviously make more money. And the way you make more money is to get more people buying it, buying into this dream. And when you can take this dream and make it where everyone can partake, that means you're going to have a dream that is safer. Because by the time it gets to the regular person to be able to travel to and from space, it's going to be a safer space station. It's going to be a safer vehicle. Because the last thing we want to see is a rocket full of teenagers, school kids, on a field trip, traveling to space that blow up. We don't want that. We want to make sure it's the safest possible vehicle. And we're going to get there so that everyone can enjoy. So everyone can be able to come back and say, yeah, I got a chance to go to space. For someone's kids to say, guess what I did today? We went to space. We got to see the stars. We got to see this. We got to see what this looked like. We got to study outside of Earth. We got to see what it looked like of like weather patterns and clouds from a whole different angle. And we are going to eventually get there. So yeah, congratulations to SpaceX. And, you know, I hope they continue on pushing this. And they're not the only one, again, pushing space travel. You got other companies out there. You got Virgin Galactic, that's one of them. And I'm pretty sure it's going to open up the competition to more companies. And again, the more competition, the more they push each other, and the more they push each other, the better we will have overall for everyone. So, yeah, I'm definitely digging this. So let's go on to, I'll say, my next and final topic. The one that really got me started to really start this show for today, and that's talking about Google. And I've been a fan of Google smartphones for years, man, for about 10 years. The first phone, I've said many times, that got me started was the Droid. And the Droid came out right before the Nexus 1. And though the Droid was the phone that really captured the attention of a lot of people to start taking Android seriously, the Nexus 1 and Google's Nexus line sat in the background as a reference device to give manufacturers and developers an idea of what Google was trying to do with smartphones. At the time when the Nexus 1 came out, it was trying to be revolutionary, trying to be one of the best devices they can put out there and show where we can go. Though, you know, we can question the fact that when the Nexus 1 came out, they kind of strayed away from really paying attention to what people really cared about, such as having a removable memory, which is something that was really big with the Droid, especially for those who love the ROM, you know. But overall, you know, where we went with Google and smartphones continued to evolve every year, especially when the Nexus program really started to take root and people really started paying attention to it. And I would say that somebody would say that it started with the Nexus S, and I would say by the Galaxy Nexus was when people was really down with it, was really ready to get on board. You know, you had the rumor that Verizon was working with Google to bring a version of the Nexus 1 to Verizon. And when it never came to fruition, they ended up turning it to the Droid Incredible. And eventually we did get more Nexus phones. Like I said, the Galaxy Nexus, the Nexus 4, the Nexus 5, and so on. And these phones were a vision that Google had to bring their software and hardware to the masses. Now, they had different goals with each of the phones. But for me, I've been a big fan of the Nexus phones. Even though with the Galaxy Nexus, I had some issues with just how it performed, I still miss and love the look of it. Being one of the first phones to have a pay system with Google Wallet. First to have Face Unlock. They really opened up technology in ways that other companies didn't really explore until later. Now we're seeing more companies finally evolve their Face Unlock programs and their pay systems. And I've always stood by Google with their hardware because of one simple fact. What they did with their software. The fact they continue to update it. And update it frequently. In other words, when I bought a phone from Google, I knew I was getting my money's worth because they were supporting it. At least on the software side. When I say get my money's worth, I would get my money's worth on the software side because they kept supporting it. The last phone I bought outside of outside of my Nexus have been Samsung. And the final time I finally just said I was done with Samsung was with the Samsung Note 5. And it's like when you buy something like a Samsung device, it's smooth out of the box. And then 6-7 months down the line, it's like you're having to constantly reboot it. It feels like it starts lagging and it gets worse. Where with Google, it was the opposite. You get a phone from them, and it felt like every year with more software updates, it was getting better. It was getting smoother. It was like Google was finally getting a chance to understand their hardware they had and was really taking advantage of improving it more and more and improving experience. This is what I really loved about Google's phone program. It's the simple fact that, yes, I was able to get the latest and greatest software from Google because Google do a good job with their software. And that was something that really turned me off with Samsung, is that they really didn't, at least in my taste, didn't do a good enough job with updating their software. Now, I pick on Samsung for this, and I think it's unfair because they're not the only one who do this. In fact, if I had to be fair overall, I think Samsung have done a better job over the years with updating their software, with making them less intrusive and less commercial, and improving it over the years. And even with their software updates, I think they are getting better with it. And like I said, they're not the only one. LG fits there, HTC. So a lot of these hardware manufacturers, they're all kind of on the same level here with being way behind when it comes to software updates. In fact, I say the only company right now that gets a pass for staying up to date has been OnePlus. But that's something, save for another discussion. But yeah, this is where we have been. And I really, before I get into my gripe with Google, because I have something to say about my issue with Google as of late. I just want to make sure I'll be fair to say that, yeah, I'm a fan of Google software. I'm a fan of Google's hardware. I'm a fan of Android. Though as much as I point to the reason being in the start being a Droid, I had to think about, where the Droid kind of started from. As much as I talked about the Droid being that hardware that, was pretty much pure Google software, well, it really wasn't, for anyone that kept up with the Droid. It started with Amazon MP3 being preloaded. As far as getting software updates, it wasn't really on par with the Nexus one. But it's obvious that a lot of at least for the fans of the Droid, what brought them or kept them excited about it was the ramen community. That community pretty much made Motorola Droid what it is. And I think if you didn't have the community surrounding the Motorola Droid, some would argue that the phone may not be considered as great of a phone as it was. So I think the community did more to make the phone than the phone was, if that can be said. And to my gripe with Google, and it's with the Pixel. When I had the Nexus, I think a lot of the people around the Nexus community said, all right, this phone has the best software. But the hardware, I wish would be a little bit better. I wish you could do more. But the reason why Google pointed out why they went with subpar hardware, to bring the price down. It was an excuse. Okay, listen, we could give you the best hardware that Samsung have, but we got to charge you what Samsung charge you. So what we're going to do, we're going to cut back here, we're going to cut back here, and allow you to have this great software experience at the price that's not on the same par as these other manufacturers. In other words, a little bit cheaper. And people are like, okay, all right, so this is not the same price as a Samsung. In other words, instead of me paying $700-800 for a brand new Note, I can go over there and spend $600-700 on a Nexus that, as far as specs are, it's in the ballpark. You know, it's right around there. You know, except for the camera, it's pretty much right where it needs to be. And then we say, okay, look, Google, you know, you tried it with the Nexus 6. You tried saying, I want to give you premium hardware to go with the software, and people complain about the price. So you went back to your roots. We want to bring the price back down to make people happy. But now we're going to introduce this program, the Pixel program, where we're going to bring you the hardware to match the software. And this is going to justify the price that we're at. This is why we're going to charge you more for this phone versus what we charge you with the Nexus 1. Okay. People's on board. People's willing to see what you're going to do. And that's where lies the problem. So for 3 years straight with the Pixel, you say you're going to give us better hardware. But outside of the camera, I will argue that you haven't really given us the best hardware experience. I mean, don't get me wrong. You improved the cameras greatly. Because before the Pixel phones, when you talked about Nexus phones and cameras, you understood when you got a Nexus phone, your camera was going to be subpar. But now that we went with the Pixel, yes, the Pixel for 3 years straight have been named, if not one of the best camera in a smartphone. So you accomplished your job there. And I give you credit for all of that. But outside of the camera, I can't really name where else, as far as hardware, you did a great job at. I mean, we go to the first Pixel, it wasn't a design, because pretty much it was a design that HTC had on the shelf of an HTC A phone. I forgot which phone it was, that they were looking to throw away, and they just recycled it and made it into a Pixel 1. A phone that looked almost like an iPhone with all the bezel and designs and all that stuff, without waterproofing, with all this bezel and, you know, and yeah, it just didn't have the look that felt like it was with the time. But again, we backed off you, Google, because of the simple fact it was your first phone. And this was kind of just the first time you threw it out there, and we wanted to give you a chance. All right, so year 2, you go back to LG, the company that gave you the Nexus 5, the company that brought you back on the map with the Nexus 4, after everyone was not too happy with the Galaxy Nexus. They were the company that really helped revive the Nexus line. We needed it. And you said we want to go back to them, the hardware partner that made it all, helped us out a lot. We're going to you guys. Let's see what you can do. And they gave us a Pixel 2 XL. And honestly, as far as the camera, was great. Hardware for the most part was good, except for that display. And you knew it was messed up. You know the display was messed up. You knew the moment it got out there that everybody started bashing it. You know, you try to throw out there that, you know, all these different excuses of why the display looked this way, and try to point out and say all these other AMOLED displays have this color tint and so on and so on. But you knew it was messed up because of the simple fact that you gave everybody another year warranty. Because, all right, we know everybody's not happy about it. We're going to find a way to smooth it over to everybody and the customers. And it worked. People kind of calmed down. You know, you had that blue tint kind of sort of worked its way out of the talk as far as the Pixel 2 XL. And overall, you know, the phone, it was a decent phone. You know, I liked it. You know, I didn't like the display was muted, but as far as the way it performed, all right, this is your second phone. We expect by year 3 you get it right. There we go with the Pixel 3 XL. You got the big old notch on the front of it. Everyone else is at least kind of trying to make the notch look somewhat decent. And here you go with this huge notch. Now, your explanation for it, because of the front-facing cameras, the large front-facing cameras to allow us to perceive depth. All right, fine. That's the way you're going to go. That's your excuse you're going to use. Fine. And you obviously try to make that the point when you put out your commercials, pointing out the ability of the front-facing camera. I got you. But then you have people complaining that, well, how is it that this is pretty much the exact same phone as the Pixel 2 XL without, how you don't add more RAM into it? This is supposed to be an update from the last year's phone. And the only thing you really updated was added a notch there. That was pretty much it. Okay, you updated the process, but really all you did was added a notch there. That was it. You didn't add anything else useful. And you charged $800 for it. Where you have OnePlus who was able to do more for less. In fact, I had both of these phones side by side. And for my daily driver, I ended up using my OnePlus 6C. Why? Because the display is better. The overall performance is better. I just prefer using the phone. The only time I break out my Pixel 3 XL is for when it's time to take a picture. Because I'll give it to you. The camera's better. But as far as the overall device, I don't see that much being that much better than the 2XL. In fact, I would argue the 2XL is kind of better than the 3XL in my opinion. The display is, yes, it's a little bit better than the 2XL, but not enough to justify the upgrade. And this is my issue with Google. I feel like whatever you guys are doing with this hardware thing, it's not working outside of the camera. I don't know whether it's because your reliance on LG, which I don't really blame LG entirely for, considering you got HTC pushing out the other half of your phone. Or just whoever's in there has this mindset that we're going to just throw out anything and see if the customer just buy it. We're going to pull an Apple here. We're going to just sit there and commercialize the crap out of it, throw out commercials, talk about everything else, and overlook the issues that people continue to complain about. And that's our lack of innovation when it comes to hardware. Lack of being on par with all the other companies out there when it comes to hardware. And you can't tell me price is a thing, because again, if OnePlus can put out a phone at, again, $600-700 and have more RAM and have pretty much the same hardware that you have outside of the camera, I think you guys being Google can do the same, if not better. And this makes me wonder if it's time for you guys to either open up the hardware to other companies. Maybe get away from LG and HTC now. And I understand that, LG been there, but, looking at the latest LG G8, I feel like LG just maybe is not ready to continue on with the Nexus line. I know you guys bought all these engineers from HTC, and unless you guys they're about to bring out some game-breaking hardware out here, it may be time to open this up. And you have companies out there that can really help you out there, can really open this thing up. Let's take Essential out there. Even though the first Essential phone hardware has some areas it can improve, I think if you take some of the developers of them and under your guidance came up with a hardware design that was up to par or really meant to be game changing, I think it can do that. Or even open up to other manufacturers out there. Even better, open up the Android or Google Play developer phones again. Or Google Play Edition phones again. If you have manufacturers that are willing to jump on board. And I think you will have some out there. I think if you open it up to companies like OnePlus or Essential or someone like that who, they need more of an audience. They'll be more willing to jump on board. And they could probably do more Especially if you open up something like this to OnePlus and make them your, hardware partner and work with them and give them a better camera. Because if you took the OnePlus 6T here and you added the rear camera that was on the Pixel 3 XL, I think it would be the best phone of last year. And at this point, being a big fan of Google, big fan of Android, I'm feeling like that this got to be the last year that Google can get a pass here. As much as I've had an issue with Samsung and I've been out there talking about what they've done as far as their software and how much I hate their software, they're out there still innovating. They're changing the game. They're doing things out there. They're taking risks. And I can see why their fans enjoy their phones. Because when you go out there, you buy a Samsung phone, you're getting something that feels special, that feels different, that feels like it's trying to be the best that it can be, giving you something that was better than last year. That's almost game changing, if I can say. And when I pick up a Pixel phone, outside of the software and the camera, it's like other than that, everything else is subpar. In fact, let's call it what it is. It's a Nexus phone. It's always what it always have been and what it always should have been. And if you're going to go back to being to the Nexus phone ways, if that's the route you want to stay on, then go back to charging the Nexus phone prices. But if you're going to start charging the premiums of an iPhone, of a Samsung, if you want to put yourself on the same level as those two manufacturing titans, demanding a price or charging the price that they charge, it's time to step up. I'm tired of giving you guys a pass on this. I'm tired of sitting there saying it's okay. I'm tired of telling people that, yeah, man, Google will get themselves together one day. I'm tired of, putting down people who enjoy Samsung phones and saying, man, I would love Samsung, but their software is garbage. Because the reality is, yeah, their software may be not up to par where I feel it should be, but their hardware is. Where in the Google, I'm giving you way too much pass. Because when people ask me about a Pixel phone, I say, yo, Google, I have nothing but good to say about the software. I never really speak about the hardware. And I think it's time for me to be just as fair with Google or as I am with Samsung, where I point out the flaws of the Samsung phone. I do talk about the goods of it, but I'm quick to point out the flaws being in their software. It's time for me to do the same with Android, and not Android, but the same with Google, with the Pixel line. Say, yes, their software is great. Their camera is great. But their hardware started to get garbage. It started to become stale. It's not really up to par where it could be. The Pixel 3 XL, it's a joke. If I'm going to be real. There's no way we should have allowed a phone. Let Samsung do this. Let Apple do this. Let Apple or Samsung put out the exact same phone they put out the year before. With the only thing they claimed to change was update the processor. And that's it. Let them do that. And man, the community would just tear them apart. And yet we gave you guys a pass on this one. Let that slide right through. I mean, we called you out slightly, but we let it slide because, man, that camera's good. And don't get me wrong, again, the camera is good. We'll give you that. But we let you slide on everything else. And that kind of needs to stop. Call you out for what it is. Hey, that hardware that you put out, that was not your best effort. Not only was it not a best effort, you just gave up. It's like you waited until the day of to decide you want to do a project and say, what can I come up with? Oh, I got an idea. Let's take the phone we had last year. The project already turned in. Let's go ahead and change one or two things in this project and make it seem like it's something new. And that was just horrible. And yeah, man, I'm just, as much as I'm a big fan of Google and their phones, I'm really disappointed in kind of what they have done with their hardware. And I really want to see them step up And especially when I'm looking out and seeing other hardware manufacturers still trying to take risks out there. I'm looking at some of the rumors that are coming out for the OnePlus 7. As they're trying to get rid of this notch, trying to change the game. We see what Samsung's doing. Everybody's trying to do something different. And I almost, don't want to even see the Pixel 4. Because I have the feeling it's going to be the same old garbage that we saw last year. A half effort. Where everybody else is trying to find ways to give you more RAM in your phone. Trying to find a way to 6, 8. We got OnePlus throwing a phone with 10 gigabytes of RAM. You guys are going to probably next year say we got a phone with 4.5 gigabytes of RAM. 5 gigabytes of RAM. Whatever. And past that is okay. Expect the market to jump on board and say, we got an extra gigabytes of RAM. It's awesome, but it's not. It's not awesome. And you can see where this phone is lacking on the RAM, where it should have had the extra power, and it needed it. Because it's not performing where it could have been performing at. It's not performing the same way my OnePlus 6T. Which proves the fact that, yes, for people going out there and saying the Pixel didn't need the extra RAM, no, it needed it. And the fact that Google decided not to put that in there was just robbery right there. And it was just foolish because they know better. It's not like they don't know. It's not like they're new into the hardware manufacturer. They've been doing this since 2009. So they have 10 years plus in the game. They know better. And they work with all these other hardware manufacturers out there. So to put this out there and consider this okay, when it's not, just shows a lot of what makes Google Google. And what continues to frustrate me about Google. The half effort they put in everything. Yeah, sometimes they come out with great products. Sometimes they come out with great software. But then there's a lot of times they come out with some stuff where it's like, what was Google thinking? It's like they just, all over the place. They can't be still and focus on something. They work on something, pick up, do something else, pick up, do something else, pick up, do something else. Instead of focus and see a project all the way through. And when it comes to their phone, with all the people looking at it, with all these eyes on them, you would think now will be the time they will get themselves together. And I hope they do. I really do. I hope the Pixel 4 can be the phone that really say, we figured it out. We got it together. We hear you guys. Here's our phone that really competes with the market. I really hope I can say that. But to be honest with you, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we're going to get the same old out of Google. They're going to continue on sliding on through. And you know what? At this point, I'm probably about done with Google. Where every year I look forward to the next Pixel phone. Man, I might need to start looking for another hardware manufacturer. Maybe I should start looking more forward to the next OnePlus phone. At least they're trying. I definitely started to look forward to the Samsung phones. Even though I may not, buy them. At least I enjoy seeing they're trying. They're trying to do something new. Even LG trying something new. I may not like their little gesture design in there, but they're trying. And that's all I'm asking for Google. Just try. Let's try to do something different. Just act like you care, if you don't mind. Act like you really care about your phone hardware. Making it really good. Making it really worth buying. Just act like you care. Can you do that? Because I think if you really was to put your full effort behind making this phone where it should be, there's not a phone manufacturer that can stand and win your way. There's not a company that could beat you. There's not even a chance that it could be touched. Unless they intentionally tainting it. Unless they tanking for a reason. Unless they're saying, look, we're going to just continue to put out subpar phones so we don't make our hardware manufacturers mad. Which, that's not working, if that's the route you're going. Looking at where we at as far as the state of Android. Because if you take out Samsung, and really, well, not too many people know about OnePlus, but you take out Samsung, who else do you have there? HTC is pretty much dead. They don't exist anymore almost. They might well not even be in an argument. LG, they're sort of on the heels, but okay. Motorola has pretty much become the phone for those who want cheaper phones. But when it comes to flagship, who are the manufacturers that are up there and making a representation for Android outside of Samsung? So if your concern is about making hardware manufacturers mad, you can go ahead and stop worrying about that. It's time to go back to being the gold standard, being the reference device, showing these hardware manufacturers what Android can do. That's what you need to do. Recapture the spirit that made the Nexus 1 the phone that it was, the excitement that got Android fans into this. That is what we're looking for. And that's the leadership we're looking for out of Google. This is PC747, breaking down my thoughts on the Pixel, SpaceX, and on Marvel, or Captain Marvel. Have a good day. Thank you for tuning in. Please leave your comments below on your thoughts on these topics. I'm out.